Okay, so picture the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Got it in your head.
Right. The biggest sporting event in the U.S.
Exactly. The commercials, the halftime show, all of it. Now take that viewership and multiply it by, I don't know, 10.
At least 10.
Right.
Seriously. You're talking about over 1 billion pairs of eyes, all glued to their screens. Now, here's the twist. Imagine the two teams playing. They aren't just from different cities.
No.
Imagine they represent two neighboring nations that have, nuclear arsenals, a volatile border, and have fought 4 actual bloody wars against each other in living memory.
It's a staggering thought experiment when you put it in those terms.
And it gets deeper. Imagine the outcome of this game.
Yeah.
It doesn't just decide who gets a trophy. It dictates the national mood, the stock market, even political stability for weeks, sometimes months.
The terrifying thing is that's not a thought experiment for 1/5 of humanity. That is the lived reality of India versus Pakistan on a cricket field.
And that is exactly what we're going to unpack today in this deep dive. Today is Sunday, February 8th, 2026. And I want to be really clear right from the start. We are not just talking about bat and ball here.
Not even close.
This is, as one source put it, a civilizational drama played out on a 22-yard strip of clay.
It's everything. It's a surrogate for war. It's a multi-billion-dollar economic engine that basically funds the global sport. And it's a psychological mirror for over 1 billion people.
And honestly, we couldn't have picked a more volatile moment to talk about this. You mentioned the date. If you've been following the news, you know the world of cricket is just holding its breath right now.
We're in what analysts are calling a stalemate of giants. It feels like the whole sport is on a knife's edge.
It's so tense. The T20 World Cup is scheduled to start later this month, co-hosted by Sri Lanka and India. Tickets are sold out, broadcast deals are signed, the hype is at a fever pitch. But there's this massive dark cloud hanging over the whole thing.
A boycott threat.
A very legitimate boycott threat from Pakistan that could derail everything.
And the stakes are just astronomical. We're not talking about a forfeited match. We were talking about a single fixture, just one game, India versus Pakistan, being worth anywhere between $250 and $500 million.
$500 million for one game.
That's why they call them the crown jewels of global sports economics. And right now, because of a diplomatic standoff that has been brewing for years, we are staring down the barrel of a crisis that could shatter the entire financial structure of world cricket.
So our mission today is to understand why. Why does this sport, this one game, carry so much weight? To do that, we have to look back before we can look forward.
Exactly. We'll unpack the history, the blood-soaked origins of this rivalry.
And not just the stats, I mean the real trauma. We'll get into the psychology, why a loss feels like a national funeral.
And why a win feels like you've somehow corrected a historical wrong. Then we'll dig into the money, the cold, hard cash behind this 2026 crisis.
And we're going to bust some myths, especially about the players, who are often friends while the entire world is screaming at them to be enemies.
It's a journey that takes us from the partition of an empire right into the boardrooms of 2026. It's about how a gentleman's game, a British pastime, became this South Asian obsession.
Okay, so let's start at the very, very beginning. And I don't mean the first test match. I mean the birth of the nations themselves.
Yeah.
Because you can't separate the cricket from the border, can you?
You absolutely cannot. It's impossible. You cannot understand the intensity of an India-Pakistan match without first understanding the trauma of 1947.
Right.
This rivalry didn't start with a coin toss on a cricket pitch. It started with a line drawn on a map by a British lawyer, Cyril Radcliffe.
A man who I read had never even been to India before he was tasked with dividing it.
Never set foot in the villages he was carving up. He was given a few weeks, outdated maps, and told to create 2 countries.
This is the partition of British India. And I think for a lot of our listeners, maybe who know the sport but not the deep history, the sheer scale of this gets lost. Can you just paint that picture for us? What did 1947 actually look like on the ground?
It was cataclysmic. There's no other word. When the British Raj ended, the subcontinent was cleaved into 2 independent nations, a Hindu-majority India and a Muslim-majority Pakistan.
And this triggered one of the largest and most violent migrations in human history.
And it wasn't an organized relocation. It was chaos. It was madness. Families were told their homes were now in a different country. They had to pack what they could carry and walk.
And walk through what?
Through hell. There were riots, massacres, trains arriving at their destinations silent, filled with the dead. The official numbers are contested, but the estimates are over 1 million people were killed in communal violence.
1 million dead.
and 15 million people were displaced. 15 million. Muslims moving north and west to Pakistan, Hindus and Sikhs moving south and east into India. It was, as some historians have called it, a communal holocaust.
And that trauma, that blood,
Yeah.
that's the soil this rivalry grows out of.
Exactly.
So it's not just we're neighbors and we want to beat you. It's ancestral. It's we survived you. It's visceral.
Precisely. And in that context, cricket became the most civilized yet the most intensely charged theater for that trauma. It was a way to continue the conflict without the weapons.
A safe outlet for all that pain.
But here's where it gets really interesting, and maybe surprising for modern fans who are just used to the aggression and the social media wars.
Right.
The very early days of the rivalry, specifically the first series in the 1950s, it wasn't filled with hatred.
This really stood out to me in the research, and I want to push on this a bit. The first test series was in 1952. That's only 5 years after the horror you just described.
Just 5 years.
You'd expect it to be a bloodbath, right? The pure animosity. But all the accounts call it cordial. Is that just nostalgia, or was it actually friendly?
I think it's a bit of both, but it mostly comes down to the personal relationships. You have to remember, in 1946, these guys were teammates. They played on the same domestic teams. They played for an all-India team under the British flag. The very first Pakistani captain, Abdul Hafiz Kardar, and the Indian captain, Lala Amarnath, had played together for undivided India.
So they were friends, or at least colleagues.
They were colleagues. They had shared dressing rooms, shared meals on long train journeys. They knew each other's families. The border changed, but the address book, as you said, didn't immediately.
So the politics was one thing, but the personal was another.
For a while, yes. There's this one amazing anecdote from that 1952 series that I think just perfectly encapsulates this strange transitional moment.
Yeah.
India's Vinu Mankad and Pakistan's Imtiaz Ahmed, during that first ever series, they actually swapped their team blazers.
Wait, swapped blazers. Like the official national team blazers.
The very symbols of their new national identities. One with the Indian emblem, one with the Pakistani star and crescent. They just traded them right there as a gesture of friendship.
That is unthinkable today. Right. Can you imagine that happening now? Can you imagine Virat Kohli or Babar Azam swapping a BCCI blazer for a PCB one in the middle of a World Cup?
The internet would literally melt down. They would be branded as traitors before they even got back to the hotel.
It's sedition.
It would be seen as sedition.
Yeah.
But back then, it was this poignant image from a gentler time. It was a gesture of friendship amidst the ruins of their shared past. It was almost like the players were trying to say, the politicians may have divided the land, but we still speak the same language of cricket.
But that era couldn't last. It was too fragile. The geopolitical reality eventually had to catch up with the sport.
It did. We moved from the cordial 50s into the 60s and 70s, and suddenly the lights go out on the rivalry.
The Great Void, as it's often called by cricket historians.
A huge gap. Between 1962 and 1977, the cricketing ties were completely severed. They did not play a single match against each other.
For 15 years. And why? Because the nations went to war.
Twice, in 1965 and again in 1971, which led to the creation of Bangladesh. Cricket was, understandably, the last thing on anyone's mind.
So for a whole generation of fans, the rivalry just paid. It existed only as a myth. They weren't playing.
And think about what that does to the psychology of it all. Absence makes the heart grow. Well, not fonder in this case, more obsessive.
Right.
The rivalry became a legend. You had these titans of the game who never got to test themselves against their true rivals in their prime.
Who are we talking about here? Who missed out on those key battles?
Well, just imagine. Sunil Gavaskar, arguably the greatest opening batsman of his generation, facing the fearsome Pakistani pace attacks of that era consistently. Or the great Pakistani batsmen like Zahir Abbas against India's famous spin quartet. We were robbed of those battles.
And because they didn't play, the idea of the rival became
monstrous. The enemy became an abstraction. It's much easier to hate an abstract concept than a guy you play against every year who you might even have a drink with after the game.
So when they finally did resume playing in 1978, the whole context had shifted.
Completely. This was the era of General Zia-ul-Haq's military dictatorship in Pakistan and the Janata Party government with Morarji Desai in India. They used cricket as a diplomatic tool, a thaw.
Cricket diplomacy. That phrase comes up again and again. It sounds nice, but it also feels a bit cynical, doesn't it? Like using the players as political pawns.
Oh, it is deeply cynical, but it's effective. Leaders on both sides have used cricket to break the ice when official diplomatic channels are frozen. Zio Hawk famously flew to Jaipur to watch a match as a way to de-escalate tensions.
But while the leaders are shaking hands in the VIP box, the mood on the ground, in the stands, had hardened.
It was no longer just a sport. It had become an undeniable battle for national pride. And then, in the 1980s, one specific moment changed everything. It took the rivalry from a competition and turned it into a psychological scar.
You're talking about Sharjah, 1986, Javed Miandad.
The last ball, 6.
Okay, let's slow this down and really set the scene for the listener, because even if you weren't born then, if you're a fan from the subcontinent, this moment is in your DNA.
It is. It's the final of the Australasia Cup in Sharjah. The desert heat is stifling. The crowd is electric, almost evenly split.
It's the last ball of the entire match. Pakistan needs 4 runs to win. A 4 ties it, but a 6 wins the trophy. Anything less, and India wins. Jitin Sharma is bowling for India.
And he's a good bowler, a capable bowler. But the pressure on him, you can't even begin to imagine what that felt like.
And on strike is Javed Miandad. He's the street fighter of Pakistani cricket, the ultimate scrapper, the guy you'd want in a trench with you.
The one man you do not want to be bowling to in that situation. Sharma runs in. He's trying to bowl a Yorker, a ball aimed right at the batsman's toes to make it impossible to hit.
The perfect ball for that moment.
But under that immense pressure, his hand slips or he just misses his mark slightly. He bowls a full toss, a ball that sits up, begging to be hit.
It's a gift, a horrible, horrible gift.
And Miandad does not miss. He smashes it into the stands for 6. Pakistan wins. Miandad raises his bat, running wildly towards the pavilion. It was absolute bedlam.
And the sources say this wasn't just a loss for India. It was a wound in the Indian psyche. That sounds dramatic, but was it really that deep?
It was profound. For a decade after that, Indian fans, and frankly, the players too, carried this sense of dread. It felt like no matter how well they played, Pakistan would find some way to win at the last second. It created a genuine mental block.
And for Pakistan,
Miandad became immortal. He became the ultimate hero, the defiant warrior who snatched victory from the jaws of a much larger, more powerful neighbor. That single moment defined the modern aggression of the rivalry.
it set the narrative for years. Pakistan as the unpredictable, passionate fighters, and India as the team that crumbled under pressure.
A narrative that took India almost 20 years and a man named Sachin Tendulkar to finally reverse.
It really ramped up in the 90s, didn't it? That's when satellite TV exploded across South Asia.
The game was no longer on a crackly radio. It was in your living room, in color, with slow-motion replays of every glare, every appeal. Hyper-nationalism took over.
And the political situation was getting worse, too.
The conflict in Kashmir was intensifying, and the cricket absolutely reflected that anger. Every match felt like a border skirmish. But even then, in that toxic decade, you had these incredible flashes of humanity that are so important to remember.
You're talking about the 1999 Chennai Test. This is one of my favorite stories in all of sports.
It's a remarkable moment. This was a nail-biter of a test match. Pakistan, led by the great Wasim Akram, won a test on Indian soil in Chennai. It was agonizing for the home crowd.
Because India had come so close, Sachin Tendulkar had played one of the greatest innings of his life, 136 runs, while battling crippling back spasms. But he got out right at the end, and India just collapsed.
He was devastated. He didn't even come out for the post-match ceremony.
So the Indian fans are heartbroken. Their hero, Tendulkar, is reportedly in the dressing room in tears. Pakistan has just beaten them on their home ground. You'd expect booing, right? Maybe even riots.
You would. But then something incredible happened. The Pakistani team started to take a victory lap around the stadium.
A brave move.
Very. And the entire Indian crowd, thousands and thousands of people who had just had their hearts broken, they stood up and they gave the Pakistani team a standing ovation.
That still gives me chills just thinking about it. A standing ovation for the enemy in your own backyard because you recognize they just played a beautiful, hard-fought game of cricket. What does that tell us?
It tells us that the cricket fan in the subcontinent is incredibly sophisticated. It shows that underneath all the political posturing, underneath the jingoism, there's this deep shared appreciation for the art of the game. They recognized greatness. It was a moment where the love for cricket transcended the national narrative.
But those moments seemed to get rarer as we moved into the 2000s.
Yeah.
The narrative began to shift again.
It did. We had the 2003 World Cup, and this was the counter-narrative to Miandad's 6. This was Sachin Tendulkar's epic 98 at Centurion.
I remember that match so vividly.
Yeah.
The uppercut for 6 off Shoaib Akhtar. That felt like India finally exercising the ghosts of 1986.
It was exactly that. Tendulkar, under the most immense pressure imaginable, just dismantling Pakistan's vaunted pace attack. For India, that was a moment of national assertion. It also happened to coincide with India's rise as a global economic power. The narrative shifted from India the victim to India the powerhouse.
And then fast forward to 2011, the World Cup semifinal in Mohali, India. That was huge.
It was, and you had the prime ministers, Manmohan Singh of India and Yusuf Raza Gilani of Pakistan, sitting together watching the game from the stand.
Cricket diplomacy at its absolute peak.
It was supposed to be a restart for the relationship, especially after the Mumbai terror attacks of 2008 had frozen everything. It was this fleeting, hopeful symbol of concord.
But looking back now from where we sit today in 2026, it feels like a very, very distant memory.
A lifetime ago.
It really does. Because now, we aren't seeing prime ministers watching games together. We're seeing lawyers drafting boycott statements. But before we get to the current mess, I want to pause and really dig into the heads of the fans. What is actually happening in our brains when we watch these two teams play? Why does my own heart rate go up just watching the coin toss?
This is where we have to look at something called social identity theory. It's the key to understanding why you care so much.
Okay, let's unpack this. But not the textbook definition. How does this apply to the guy in the stands with his face painted green or tricolor?
At its core, social identity theory is about how we categorize the world to make sense of it. We are tribal creatures. We instinctively define in-groups. That's us, and out-groups, that's them. It's a fundamental part of how we build our self-esteem.
So cricket becomes the tribe.
It's the ultimate tribe. But it's more intense than that. In your daily life, your identity is complex, right? You might be a father, an accountant, a music lover, a dozen other things. But when an India-Pakistan match starts, all those complex identities they get flattened. They recede into the background.
For those few hours, you are simply Indian or Pakistani.
Exactly. It simplifies the world. It strips away all the nuance, and that simplification is incredibly powerful. It creates what sociologists call collective effervescence.
Collective effervescence. I like that phrase. It sounds bubbly.
It is. It's that electric charge you feel in a crowd. It's why watching a match alone on your couch feels so different from watching it in a stadium with 100,000 people who are all feeling the same thing you are.
It's a shared emotional experience.
And when your team wins, it's not just a win. It's a euphoric release for the entire group. It's catharsis. It's a sanctioned outlet for all those historical tensions we talked about. You can scream at the enemy in a stadium in a way you could never do in a diplomatic summit.
George Orwell had that famous quote about this, didn't he?
He called international sport war minus the shooting. And in the case of India and Pakistan, that's not even a metaphor. It's literally true.
A soft war. A safety valve.
It allows the nations to compete, to assert dominance, to feel a sense of national pride without actually firing missiles. A win is a euphoric release. A loss leads to communal mourning, smashing TVs, burning effigies of the players.
But there's a weird conflict in the fans' mind too, right? Because as much as the narrative demands you hate the other side, if you actually know and love cricket, you can't help but admire their skill.
That is classic cognitive dissonance. It's the mental discomfort you feel holding two conflicting beliefs at the same time.
Give me an example.
Okay, take an Indian fan in the 90s. They want Pakistan to lose desperately. They're chanting slogans against them. But then they watch Wasim Akram run into bowl. They see that perfect wrist position, that beautiful late swing, the pure artistry of it. And a part of them, the cricket lover, is in awe.
So you admire the other, even while you want to destroy them.
It's this very confusing process that actually humanizes the enemy. I've heard Pakistani fans say the exact same thing about watching Virat Kohli bat. They want him out for a duck, but they also can't help but admire a perfectly timed cover drive. It's beautiful.
A love-hate relationship in the truest sense.
And notice how the narratives around a win are framed differently on each side, too.
How so?
In India, especially in the modern era, a win over Pakistan is often framed as a triumph of the system. The BCCI's wealth, the IPL, the better infrastructure, it's the system working.
And in Pakistan?
In Pakistan, the narrative is often David slaying Goliath. We are the smaller nation, our board is poorer, we don't have a league like the IPL, but we have more junoon, more passion. We have raw, untamed talent that can take down the big, wealthy neighbor. Dr. Naman Niaz calls it an asymmetric rivalry.
And caught in the middle of all of this sociology, history, and asymmetry are 22 guys in polyester jerseys.
The players.
The cricketer diplomats. I honestly don't think any other athlete in any other sport carries the kind of burden they do. Maybe a Brazilian footballer in a World Cup final.
Perhaps. But even then, Brazil isn't in an active, decades-long conflict with Germany. The burden on these players is suffocating. Imagine going to your job knowing that the mood of 1 billion people depends on how you perform that day.
It's insane.
Players have spoken about this. They often say the fear of losing is far greater than the joy of winning. They're not playing to be heroes. They're playing desperately not to become the villain whose effigy gets burned in the street. They carry the weight of 1947 with every single ball they bowl.
It's just so intense, and that intensity brings us right back to the present day, February 8th, 2026, this crisis point.
The stalemate of giants.
We are just days away from the T20 World Cup, co-hosted in Sri Lanka and India. And we honestly don't know if Pakistan is going to show up to play their match against India.
Yeah.
How on earth did we get here? This didn't just happen overnight.
No, this is the culmination of a decade-long Cold War in cricket administration. The immediate trigger is the fallout from the 2025 Champions Trophy, but the roots go all the way back to 2012-2013.
That was the last time these two teams played a bilateral series, right?
The very last time. A bilateral series is one just between two teams, hosted by one of them. Since then, the BCCI, the Indian Cricket Board, has consistently refused to play them, citing directives from their government about cross-border terrorism.
Their official line is, "We can't play cricket with you while your state is allegedly funding attacks on our soil."
Correct. So for over a decade, the only time they meet is in multi-nation ICC tournaments, like the World Cup or the Asia Cup, because the ICC's rules basically compel them to. But in 2025, that fragile arrangement finally broke down.
Pakistan was hosting the Champions Trophy. This is supposed to be their big moment, their return to hosting major global events after years of being in the wilderness.
It was huge for them, and India refused to travel.
Flat out refused to cross the border.
They cited security concerns, though Pakistan argued that their security was world-class and that other major teams like England and Australia had recently toured without any issues.
So that forced this weird hybrid model.
Yes. It was a logistical and political nightmare. India played all of its Champions Trophy matches in Dubai, while the rest of the tournament happened in Pakistan.
How did the PCB, the Pakistan Cricket Board, take that?
They felt utterly humiliated. They felt they were treated as a second-class host in their own tournament. They felt the BCCI, with its financial muscle, essentially bullied the ICC into changing the rules for them.
So now, in 2026, the shoe is on the other foot. The World Cup is partly in India, and the PCB is saying, if you wouldn't come to our house, we're not coming to yours.
It's payback. It is pure retaliation. The PCB is arguing for fairness. They're saying if the rules apply to us, they have to apply to India too. And this time, the Pakistani government has stepped in, and that's the key. It's a government decision now, and has so far refused to let the team play their match against India.
And they're also accusing the ICC itself of being biased.
They are, and it's hard to ignore the optics. The current head of the ICC is Jay Shah, who was previously the secretary of the BCCI.
So from Pakistan's perspective, the game's governing body is run by an Indian administrator.
They argue that the ICC has effectively become an extension of Indian foreign policy. They feel the game is rigged against them at the highest level.
And the ICC is just caught in the middle of this political firestorm.
They're walking a tightrope over a pit of financial spikes. They historically tread very, very lightly when it comes to the BCCI because, let's be blunt, the BCCI brings the money.
Let's talk about that money, because this isn't just about pride or politics. It's about the golden goose.
For the suits in the boardrooms, it is strictly business. An India-Pakistan match is the single most lucrative fixture in world cricket, full stop. It's what drives the broadcast rights deals into the billions of dollars.
So when a broadcaster like Star Sports or Sky Sports buys the rights to an ICC tournament, they're not just buying cricket, they're buying the guarantee of at least one India-Pakistan showdown.
Absolutely. That one match can generate between $250 and $500 million in revenue. Through advertising, sponsorships, ticket sales, it's a behemoth.
$500 million.
Yeah.
For one 3-hour game. It's just wild.
It is. And here is the really scary part for the entire global cricket ecosystem. Without that one match, the ICC's revenue projections completely collapse.
By how much?
We are talking about a potential drop of nearly 40% in the total value of the broadcast deal.
40%.
Yeah.
So if Pakistan follows through on this boycott, it's not just the ICC or India that gets hurt.
No, and this is the critical point that often gets missed in the headlines. The financial shockwaves would devastate the smaller cricketing nations.
How?
Countries like the West Indies, New Zealand, Sri Lanka, Zimbabwe. Their cricket boards rely on the profit-sharing distribution they get from the ICC to keep the lights on, to pay their players, to fund development programs. They need that India-Pakistan cash flow to survive.
So the India-Pakistan money evaporates.
Those smaller boards could genuinely face bankruptcy.
That is an incredibly precarious position for a global sport to be in. The entire economic health of the sport is leveraged on the political relationship between two nations who can barely talk to each other.
It's a massive, massive structural risk. The sport is over-leveraged on this one fixture. And it raises a really tough ethical question. Are we allowing the politics of the subcontinent to hold the global game hostage? Is it fair that cricket in the Caribbean might die because India and Pakistan can't agree on a venue?
That's a very sobering thought. And while the boards are fighting and the politicians are posturing, there's this whole other layer to the reality that often gets ignored. We hear about the hate, the tension, the boycotts, but what about the actual human beings at the center of it? The players.
This is where we have to bust some serious myths, because the media, and social media especially, loves to portray the two dressing rooms as enemy war rooms.
Okay, let's do it. Myth number 1, the players all hate each other.
False. Categorically false. The truth is, there is a deep professional camaraderie between these athletes. They share a very specific, very rare, very high-pressure experience.
And only they know what it feels like.
Exactly. Only an Indian player truly knows what a Pakistani player is going through in that situation, and vice versa. They're part of a very exclusive club.
I've seen some of the photos that don't always make the front page.
Yeah.
Indian players attending Wasim Akram's wedding back in the day. Things like that.
And look at the modern era. Look at the relationship between Virat Kohli and Mohammad Amir. Amir is a Pakistani fast bowler who had a very turbulent career. Kohli, the Indian superstar, has always been one of his most vocal public supporters.
He gifted him a bat once, didn't he?
He did. A gesture of immense respect. You see them on a field before the game. They chat, they laugh, they ask about each other's families. They are colleagues in a high-stress global industry.
The hostility is a construct. It's for the cameras and the fans.
Mostly, yes. The players understand that at the end of the day, it's their job. A uniquely high-pressure job, but a job nonetheless.
There's this one incredible story from the 1999 World Cup that I want to drill into. We mentioned the Chennai test earlier, but the 99 World Cup was in England. And it was happening while the Kargil War was literally raging between the two countries.
Yes. This is different from the other wars because it was happening during a major tournament where they were scheduled to play each other. Soldiers were dying on the peaks of Kargil. The media hype was venomous.
So you'd expect the players to be keeping their distance, right? Staying in their separate corners, avoiding any photo ops.
You absolutely would. But there's this story about Rahul Dravid, the consummate Indian batsman, and Shoaib Akhtar, the fearsome Pakistani fast bowler, the Rawalpindi Express.
Two opposites in many ways.
Completely. And they ran into each other at the breakfast buffet in their hotel in England.
Okay, set the scene for me.
It's a gray, cold English morning, the smell of coffee and toast. And here are these two young men, thousands of miles from home. Their countries are actively at war. The news channels are screaming for blood. And what do?
They don't glare at each other.
They don't walk away. They grab their plates, they stand next to each other in line for the eggs, and they just talk.
What did they even talk about?
According to Akhtar's account, they joked about the terrible English weather, they talked about the tournament, they laughed. It was this moment of absolute mundane normalcy, a moment of shared humanity completely shielded from the public eye.
Just two guys grabbing eggs and sausages while the world burns around them.
It proves that the hatred is political, not necessarily personal.
It proves that humanity can survive even when the politics is at its most toxic.
Yeah.
And it's not just the players, is it? The fan experience has changed too, especially for those living outside of South Asia.
The diaspora experience is fascinating. I feel like the vibe is totally different if you go to a match in New Jersey or London versus, say, Lahore or Mumbai.
Completely different. If you go to a match in Dubai or Birmingham, an India-Pakistan match is a party. It's a carnival. You see groups of friends mixed together, Indians and Pakistanis sitting in the same row, sharing food, taking selfies. For the first generation, the immigrants, It's still a powerful connection to home. But for the second generation, the kids growing up in America or the UK, it seems to be evolving, doesn't it?
It really is. I read a great analysis of the 2024 World Cup matches that were held in the USA in New York and Dallas. It sounded less like a war zone and more like a massive networking event.
A networking event.
Seriously. It was the place to be seen for the South Asian Silicon Valley elite. You had CEOs of tech companies, venture capitalists, Indian and Pakistani movers and shakers all there. For a Pakistani-American or Indian-American teenager growing up in Jersey City, the match isn't about the trauma of partition.
They didn't live it. They don't carry that scar.
For them, it's about heritage. It's about vibes. It's about wearing the jersey, painting your face, and bonding with your parents over something they're passionate about. It's a festival, not a war. It's becoming a cultural export, like Diwali or Eid celebrations.
That feels like a genuinely hopeful sign. It suggests the rivalry can evolve. It doesn't always have to be about blood and soil.
But we can't be too naive. There are still shadows that hang over this fixture. We can't ignore the whole neutral venue issue. We mentioned Sharjah earlier.
Yes. Sharjah in the UAE. In the 80s and 90s, that was the neutral oasis, where they played almost all their matches because they couldn't play at each other's countries.
It was an oasis of cricket, for sure, but it also became a hotbed for match-fixing allegations. You had Bollywood stars in the VIP boxes. You had underworld figures from Mumbai rumored to be pulling strings behind the scenes.
Toxic undercurrent.
Exactly. It created this legacy of distrust that, frankly, still lingers. Allegations of players throwing games for money. That shadow is always there. It's why there's still so much suspicion whenever a close match happens in a neutral venue. Even today, people wonder, is this real or is it scripted?
So we have this incredible, complicated mix. We have the trauma of history, the pure joy of the sport, the cold, hard cash of the economics, the warmth of player friendships, and the dark shadow of corruption. It really is a double-edged sword, isn't it?
It is the ultimate paradox in sports. On one hand, this rivalry unites entire populations. It generates massive economic value. It fosters this incredible excellence under pressure. Some of the greatest cricket ever played has happened in these matches precisely because of the tension.
But on the other hand,
it absolutely exacerbates jingoism. It risks tipping over into pure xenophobia. When a team loses, the abuse the players face on social media is horrific.
it gets very ugly very fast.
We've seen players abused based on their religion, their families have been threatened. It turns the sport into something nasty and dangerous.
And the paradox is that the absence of the rivalry is just as loud and significant as the game itself.
That's a perfect way to put it. The current boycott, the silence between them, it's a political statement as powerful as any speech at the UN. The rivalry is so potent that even when they don't play, it completely dominates the conversation. We're sitting here talking about it right now, and they haven't played a proper bilateral series in 13 years.
As we start to wrap up, I keep thinking about that metaphor you used at the beginning, the living metaphor.
It really is a living metaphor for the subcontinent itself. It perfectly mirrors that tragic separation and that enduring, unbreakable connection. You cannot separate India and Pakistan culturally or historically, just like you cannot separate the history from the cricket. They are locked in this eternal, often painful embrace.
There was a quote from a poet you mentioned, Faizi Ahmed Faiz.
Yes, the great Pakistani poet. He wrote a famous poem about the pain of partition, about the disillusionment of independence. He called it a leprous daybreak.
A leprous daybreak. That's a haunting phrase.
It is. He wrote, "This is not that long-looked-for break of day, not that clear dawn in quest of which those comrades set out. It was about a tainted freedom."
And how does that connect to the cricket match?
In many ways, an India-Pakistan match is that moment. It's a fierce, bright light. It illuminates the connection, the shared language, the shared passion, the shared history, but it also ruthlessly illuminates the rift, the division. It's not the clear dawn of peace everyone hoped for, but it's this ritual that we just can't quit. It shows us how close we are, and at the same time, how painfully far apart.
It's a drama where every single delivery carries the weight of 75 years of history.
It is.
So here's the question we're left with as we sit here and look at this 2026 crisis. It's not just about whether the T20 World Cup goes ahead or if the broadcast revenue comes in. It's so much deeper than that.
The question is about the entire future of the relationship.
Can this rivalry ever evolve? Can it finally move on from being a proxy war to actually being a bridge? Or are we just stuck in this cycle forever? Are we going to continue to let the ghosts of 1947 dictate the boundaries of our joy?
Are we, as fans and administrators, capable of allowing a game to finally remain just a game? That really is the question. Can we appreciate the beauty of the struggle on the field without needing the toxicity of the war that surrounds it?
Something for all of us to think about as we wait to see who blinks first in this stalemate of giants. That's it for this deep dive. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.